Hello, everyone. I'm Sherry Graziosi, and welcome to the very first edition of the Frederick Report, which is part of the Frederick Scanner. It is my privilege and honor to come to you today at the Frederick County Sheriff's Office, where we're going to be interviewing Sheriff Chuck Jenkins. Thank you so much, Sheriff Jenkins, for agreeing to do our very first interview.
Sherry, thank you. It's a pleasure.
And I'd like to start by congratulating you on number 5 now?
If it holds up.
If it holds up.
Again, I'm not sure what we're looking at today, but if it holds up, it would be number 5.
It certainly looks that way. And that means 5 times 4 is what, 20 years?
At the end of this term, if I win, it'll be 20 years as sheriff.
What makes you so popular here in Frederick? What
I
are
have
you
no
doing
idea.
right? You're doing something
well, listen,
right.
we have a great agency here, not because I am sheriff, but because I've been part of a team of people over 33 years that has created a great agency.
How many deputies do you have?
I have an authorized strength of 190, and right now we have 7, maybe 8 vacancies, depending on retirements from week to week, month to month.
Has COVID interfered at all with the vacancies with the police department, or with the sheriff's department?
COVID, no. All this police reform nonsense and what's going on for the past 2.5 years, this backlash against law enforcement nationally and locally, that has impacted recruiting and hiring.
Really?
Yes, it has.
And how have you adjusted to it?
Well, we've done very well. So we look for, number one, we will maintain our quality of the type of people that we hire. We look for the very best that are eligible and qualified to be police or law enforcement officers. I'm not going to lower the standards. We draw a lot of attention from lateral hires from all over the region. I'm getting officers from Montgomery County, from Baltimore City, that simply want to come here. It's a great place to police and have a career, and they know that this agency has their back.
You have come under criticism a lot. Why is that? You're open there, you're out there in the public. What do you think? You have the criticism, but yet you're voted in every 4 years.
Well, I think the majority of the criticism comes from my stand on the 287G program and my stand against illegal immigration and the crime that comes with it. That's been a lightning rod for 14 years, and it becomes an election year issue every year. And so far, I've managed to sidestep that and continue to serve as sheriff. But again, I don't know how long that'll last. And I'm sure we'll talk about that this morning, but I just believe this program is so important to public safety, and what we're looking at in the future is even going to prove me right even more, I think.
I do want to talk about that program.
Sure.
And the name of it is the 287G program.
It is. It's the 287G partnership with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. It's a section of federal law that allows for any local sheriff or law enforcement agency or detention center to partner with ICE to enforce certain sections of the immigration law.
We have more and more people coming into Frederick County from Montgomery County and other areas. Do you see that becoming a bigger problem in Frederick County? I
do. And let's set aside the issue of immigration, because what I'm talking about is illegal immigration. And the criminals, people who come here illegally and then commit crimes on top of that I don't believe on releasing them back onto the streets. I believe they should be held, detained, turned over to ICE, and let ICE make the decision whether or not they're going to be removed from this country. And I think it's a public safety. It's such a valuable program, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to first of all emphasize it's a jail-based program. Mm-hmm. You have to be physically arrested for a crime, brought into our detention center. We determine the immigration status of everybody we arrest. So, Cherry, if you were to be arrested tonight, we take you to our detention center. We'd ask you a series of questions while we're booking you in. And a couple of those questions are, where were you born and what country are you a citizen of? And if we get any answer other than the United States of America, we determine your immigration status. If you're in the country illegally, we prepare the paperwork, the detainers, and once you are either released or put on bond for the local charge, you are now held on an ICE detainer, and eventually they determine whether or not you're going to be deported. So in layperson's terms, people who are arrested for crimes and are in this country illegally, and most are violent crimes, sexual assaults, aggravated assault, drug trafficking, those people are not released back onto the streets of Frederick County. They're turned over to ICE and eventually deported. So over the course of 14 years, we have deported, ICE has deported 1,640 some odd criminals that are no longer in this county committing crimes. 115 of those have been criminal gang members, mostly MS-13. So how much safer are we versus a Montgomery County, a Loudoun County, a Prince George's County? I'll stand on that.
I just want to make sure I understand. So if you're arrested tonight,
Yes.
and you come into the jail, you're asked a series of questions.
Yeah, a lot of the questions have to do with your criminal background, with your status as far as health, mental health, physical health, and things like that.
But to be clear, one of the questions is, where were you born?
Where were you born?
And
what country are you a citizen of?
okay, and if they say they're a citizen of
Venezuela, we check your immigration status to determine whether or not that's correct, and based on what we find in our status check, we go the extra step of filing a detainer or the paperwork that places a hold on you.
because they're still presumed innocent
For the local crime.
For the local crime.
Correct.
But if they're still here illegally, which is a crime.
In itself, in and of itself, sure.
Right.
So let me expand a little bit further. So as we're looking what's coming across our border every day, I think 20,000 a day now, okay, coming across illegally, 20,000 a day, and set aside all the other problems that go with it, you're talking about there's a large amount of those that are going to be here to commit crimes, take advantage of our way of life, criminal gang members, terrorists. You're talking about people who are drug traffickers, human traffickers, cartel. America's not ready for what we're going to be facing. Our justice system is not prepared for what we're going to face. So this program, as much as people criticize it, is going to become invaluable in the future.
Is it going to be harder to process it as the county starts to switch over from, the politics is getting different?
As long as I'm sheriff in this seat, and it looks like it's going to be 4 more years, the program will stand unless the federal government ends it.
But you work closely with the federal government or with our local, you work closely with our local politicians as well.
Well, let me tell you, the local politicians, for the most part, are opposed to what I'm doing.
Even our new incoming?
Well, it depends on which way the election goes.
Yeah.
If Mr. Huff wins, he will certainly support me. Mm-hmm. If the other, Ms. Fitzwater wins, she has spent her last 8 years in office criticizing me. Mm. And I hope the public really realizes that. But again, I'll argue we're a safer county because of it.
It's passionate for you. I can see it in your face.
I care about this county, the future, where we're headed, the safety of everybody in this county. That's why I do what I do.
Let's talk about another safety issue, and that is keeping our schools safe.
A priority with me.
Yes, and our schools have what they call school resource officers, or SROs.
Correct.
Tell me about Frederick County. Is it my understanding some counties are doing away with it, but we're keeping ours? Right?
We have, again, as long as I sit in this chair, in this seat, we will have SROs in our schools. Mm-hmm. Some counties have chosen to get rid of them, like Montgomery, who now want them back. Okay, they made a mistake last year in doing away with them. They now want them back, and I think in a large part they have them back. But I believe a large component of protecting this public is in our schools. If you look at what's going on nationally, look at what's happened locally here recently, if our deputy had not been at Thomas Johnson High School, did you see the video of the attempted stabbing?
I did.
Okay. Had that deputy not had been there, seen that, and responded like he did, I mean, it was so instinctive and so, he was so determined to stop that, which could have been a deadly force situation. He could have potentially shot that young woman if she hadn't dropped the knife. Luckily, he didn't. But just think if he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Again, I think that the deputies are there to protect the students, the staff, and the schools. So I've got a deputy in every high school in Frederick County, okay? That deputy is also responsible to the feeder schools. So if it's, for instance, Catoctin High School, where the deputy's assignment is, he or she will cover Thurmont Elementary and Middle, Emmitsburg Elementary, Sibyllesville, Lewistown, every school that feeds into that. So that deputy will not only be at Catoctin, but he or she may stop into every other school in that system, and again, be there, handle problems there, anything that would require law enforcement.
Do the SROs, are they looked at by the students as being scary, or are they there to promote inclusion, a focus on having these children look at them as they're there for their safety, as opposed to there to,
they're not intimidating. They're not intimidating. No, they're there, and I think first of all, every deputy that are in the schools, every one of those want to be there. Mm-hmm. They're not there to hide and end their career. They're there because they want to be there. They mentor the kids. They build relationships. A lot of them coach high school sports while they're there. So there's a lot going on. They're not intimidating. They're not there to be an occupying force. But largely, the kids love them because of the relationships they build. The administrators and staff love them. I even go to the effort of making sure every resource officer has a great working relationship with that principal. And if it doesn't fit, we change it.
I wonder, Sheriff Jenkins, we're going to go off the subject just a little bit.
Okay, sure.
I'm curious on what your thought is of Uvalde, Texas.
Oh, that was a tremendous failure on the part of law enforcement. There was no structured command. There was no decision maker there. There was no one there that stepped up and said, hey, let's go in and do what we have to do to neutralize that shooter. Mm-hmm. It was a huge failure. Should have never happened. I've got faith if something ever happened like that here, God forbid, but if we ever had that situation, I'm positive to a person that every deputy would stand up and do what he or she had to do to stop that threat. We as an agency would do what we had to do. We train every year. I even train with my men and women on how to respond, what action we would take. I'm confident we would do what we had to do.
The other issue, it's not a problem, but it's something that I was a little surprised about. Your deputies don't wear cameras, but they're going to start.
They're going to, yes.
And for some reason, I thought everybody in this country now law enforcement wear cameras.
For the most part, they do. In the state of Maryland, effective July 1 of 2025, every agency will. Mm-hmm. So, and as we will.
And how do your deputies feel about that?
I think for the most part they're fine with it. It becomes a little bit burdensome. My biggest concern about the cameras is, first of all, I was opposed to it. Fundamentally opposed because I don't like the fact that society has said we don't trust law enforcement anymore. We have now said we don't trust what you say. We don't believe in your integrity. So to me, that was a huge hurdle to get over. I believe that everything, because of the oath we take, what we believe in, the reason we do what we do, I'm really sorry that the public doesn't trust us anymore, and we have to rely on cameras. That was my number one argument against it. So you know what? I'm past that. Mm-hmm. Long story short, at the end of the day, the cameras are going to benefit law enforcement.
Would the cameras benefit law enforcement if we show the entire video instead of only a little snippet of it?
Yes, because if you look, most of the time what you see on a single body camera is only a part of the incident. You don't see the peripheral things. You don't see the whole view of it. Lots of times if you look at the bigger incidents, you only see one quick view of it, one quick clip of it. That's not the way it should be. You should see it all or see none.
Sheriff Jenkins, you are so passionate at what you do. My last question for you is, if you couldn't be sheriff in Frederick County, what would you be?
Wow. If I couldn't be sheriff and had one wish, I wish I could be in a position to do something about the failures of our border, something in Homeland Security, be a decision maker, and do something to stop the bleed into this country, because we can't sustain the problems that are coming in here, the numbers of people. It's going to buckle this country. It's going to bring us to our knees. And I wish if I couldn't be sheriff, which in my view is the greatest job in the world, okay? Because a lot of people say, why don't you run for something higher? There's nothing higher than a sheriff. Honestly, when you think about the sheriff being the chief law enforcement officer of a county, the authority that I have through the Constitution, and the executive authority that goes with it. The county executive thinks they're the kingfish. Not so. They don't realize it, and I never say that.
But you just said it.
Well, okay, I just said it. But honestly, if you think about that, by the Constitution, the authorities that a sheriff has, and rarely do you have to exercise them, but just knowing that authority is there. And I go back to what I said about this current county executive and county council has opposed me, challenged my authority on everything I've done. And they failed because the law says the sheriff has the authority to do it. And I only do it to protect the people of this county.
I can't think of a better way to end our inaugural broadcast than by protecting the people of Frederick County, and thanking you, Sheriff Chuck Jenkins, for joining us as our very first guest, and I hope you won't be a stranger and you can come back
Well,
and join us.
let me
in the
end by
future.
saying I certainly thank the people of Frederick County who believed in me, who've given me this privilege to serve and honor. And I've got, politicians look at being elected as power. I look at it as the trust of the people. So thank you for that trust.
Thank you for joining us, and I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the very first the Frederick Report. I hope you'll join us again when we have other guests coming on soon. And until then, I'm Sherry Graziosi with the Frederick Report, which is part of the Frederick Scanner.